Today I'll be talking about some of the steps I take in making films the independent way. Lately, there's been an increased push for independent filmmaking, and a lot of great filmmakers believe you don't need film school anymore. In my experience, that's kind of true. When I was 10 years old, I began to wonder how they made movies. I borrowed my dad's camera and I started making my own short videos to figure things out. A few years later, I found out you didn't need to be rich in order to buy editing and visual effects software, so that's what I asked for on my birthday. I realized I didn't know how to use the software though, and quickly found that the internet, and especially YouTube, is one of the best filmmaking assets out there. There are endless tutorials that show you how to do everything from setting up your camera to lighting to computer animation and editing, so that's how I learned. Now, a lot of people say you need to keep your story simple because most indie directors don't have access to big budgets, but that's not necessarily a bad thing. Restraints force you to get creative. Reservoir Dogs, for instance, was an indie heist film that didn't show the heist. It showed the bank robbers planning the heist, and then it showed the aftermath of them escaping the police. The Blair Witch Project is another one that was an indie horror movie, but they made it look like a documentary to keep within their budget. And there are countless other examples to study. But once you've got your story down, you start the production phase, and this is where that creativity comes in, because being a poor filmmaker, you have no money, no studio, you really have nothing. Personally, as a director, I start with costuming first. I sit down with my actors and I discuss the character and the vibe that I want, and usually I'll let the actors supply some of their own clothes. Many times I've also taken my actors to thrift stores and we've put together costumes that way. The same thing with props. You can also ask for help from your cast, crew, and family and friends, because a lot of people have really random things stored away that could make really great props. It's often surprising, actually, how many people are open to help you once they find out that you're shooting a movie. If possible, keep as many props as you can when you're finished. My own closet is full of everything from knives and hatchets, from horror shoots to modified airsoft guns, masks, and tons of miscellaneous clothing items that I can reuse for pretty much any project. Next, you're going to look for your location. Obviously, using your own home or a friend's place is the easiest way to go, and you should try and write locations that you know you have access to, but that might not film your script. However, as a poor filmmaker, you're probably not going to be able to afford paying for a location. Luckily, as I mentioned, a lot of people might be open to help you, and they may let you film on their location for free. And you might be surprised by some of the places that your friends and family might have access to. A couple years ago, my screenwriter's grandparents let us film on their tobacco farm in Northern Virginia, and visually it was exactly what we wanted for that project. So again, you never know what's going to come up, and being an indie filmmaker, it's kind of one of the most exciting processes is seeing how to make your vision come together. But now you're filming, and I'm not going to tell you how to shoot because everyone has their own style. However, I will talk about cameras briefly. Don't be self-conscious about not having a great camera, because most people probably have a good camera right in their pockets. I'm talking about your phone. Now, most people might not think about phone cameras being a viable option for filmmaking, but there are entire feature-length films that have been shot on iPhones. The top two that come to mind being Tangerine, which was an indie film that came out in 2015, and Unsane, which was actually directed by Steven Soderbergh, who is a well-known Hollywood director. Smartphone filmmaking is not just for the poor indie filmmaker, though, as Steven Soderbergh showed us. Recently, Stephen Campbell, the cinematographer for The Walking Dead, gave a presentation at ODU, and myself, my co-writer, and my cinematographer were able to have a conversation with him after his presentation. He told us that while full-blown film cameras won't go away, he does believe that smartphone filmmaking is the way of the future and that more and more projects will be made this way. There are even filmmaking apps and detachable lenses for smartphones now that will give your smartphone footage a more professional look. I've personally shot entire short films on the phone in my pocket, so shoot with what you have because most people have enough to get started. One other thing I will say when it comes to shooting is to always respect your cast and crew. It might go without saying, but considering this is an indie shoot, likely none of you are being paid, and if your cast and crew gets demoralized, you're not going to finish your film. One of the best and simplest ways I've found to keep morale up is food. At the very least, I try to keep snacks and coolers with water, Gatorade, and energy drinks on set. If the shooting day is particularly long, I'll supply dinner too. Honestly, pizza is almost never wrong. On multiple shoots I've done, I order out for a ton of pizza and wings at the end of the night. It shows you care about your crew, and they're more likely to continue to work for free if you treat them well. But now you finish shooting, and as the director, your work isn't nearly done yet because with most indie films, the director is probably also going to be the editor. Even if you aren't the editor, you're going to be working closely with the editor because this indie film is your baby and you're not going to let somebody mess that up. Now, editing can make or break a film. Good editing is sometimes unnoticeable because of how well the film flows, but bad editing is blatantly obvious and can ruin an otherwise great story. Once again, YouTube is your friend. Watch editing videos. There are some great ones out there. There are whole channels dedicated to how to edit your film. But also watch other movies. Pablo Picasso is attributed as saying good artists borrow but great artists steal. Quentin Tarantino and Steven Spielberg are two widely respected directors, but Tarantino blatantly stole shots, music, and even entire scenes from directors like Sergio Leone, John Frankenheimer, and Sam Peckinpah. Steven Spielberg likewise stole from directors like Stanley Kubrick, Alfred Hitchcock, and John Ford. I've personally stolen from both Tarantino and Spielberg, and many other directors and cinematographers who I admire and study steal from everyone all the time. The way to steal properly, though, is to make it your own. You take something you love that you've seen before, that the audience has seen before, and try and make it new and exciting through your own vision. If you do that with your shots and editing, you'll be expressing your voice as a filmmaker while simultaneously drawing on the things that you love. Once editing is done, you're ready to show your completed film. You can also enter it in competitions and festivals. Several well-known filmmakers have made their way into the industry through success with their films in film festivals. So again, if you're just mildly interested in how movies are made, or you're trying to take that first step on the journey to complete a film, my advice would be to start with a Google search. Read up on everything you want to know. Watch as many tutorials and movies as you can. Delve into the genres you're interested in. Copy the artists you love, and then start shooting with whatever you have.